Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Kingdom Conversations. This is Dr. Randy Turpin, and today I'm going to take you back into the leadership intensive that I conducted a few weeks ago in Summerville, Georgia. We're in part 3 right now, and as you go into this, be asking yourself this question: am I really focused on what matters most? Here we go. Third key is do what is right. Well, that should be obvious. But sometimes in the heat of you just got to get something done, you try to take shortcuts, and sometimes people are the mindset that, well, the ends justifies the means. What's important is that we come out with the right outcome, even if we have to do some things along the way that are maybe not the best way of doing things. Well, no, you're going to compromise the outcome if you don't do what is right. Here's what I've found is that you start... here's the thing. Obedience is always right. Obedience to God's always right. Obedience isn't always convenient.
Painful.
Yeah, it's sometimes painful. But obedience is always right. Let's remember, we're not on this path alone. We have the Good Shepherd who is leading us along the way, and He leads us in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Whatever project we're involved in ministry or vocation or in family or whatever we're dealing with, know that you're not on that alone. I mean, the shepherd is with you along the way, and he wants you to walk through that situation in a way that honors his name for his name's sake. I've found that when people function in a way that's not truly right, they start making mistakes, and they eventually have to come back to the drawing board and start all over, and eventually you have to do the right thing. You know what I'm saying? You will eventually have to do the right thing. So why not do the right thing from the start, even if it's painful, inconvenient, and even if it takes a little longer, doing it the right way. So that's key 3. Key number 4 is pray. We lead through prayer. What I mean is, no matter what initiative, no matter what project we're talking about, especially in the work of the church, you're going to lead the way in that through prayer. I mean, sometimes they won't. They'll put all the logistics up front. They'll put let's get all of our plans in place. Let's do all this. Oh, by the way, before we launch this thing, let's not forget to pray. That doesn't usually work when it comes to kingdom work. Ministry is best when it is actually conceived in prayer. This is why we started our focused prayer groups. We had some people very zealous about missions and all of that, and they want to do this and do that. And I said, well, why don't we form a prayer group first, focused on missions, and let's let out of that prayer group our missions initiative emerge. Okay? Lead the way with prayer. It's like the point of the spear. And there's a point in prayer where actually prayer shifts to prophecy. You know what I mean? When hey, I've already prayed this thing 1,000 times. Well, okay, you've prayed it. You know that God's heard you, and you're really waiting for the manifestation of the answer. Then just shift that into thanksgiving and prophecy. Just begin to declare it. There's some things I am praying for right now that actually, when I come before Father, it's more I'm declaring it. Thank you, Father, that you're working in the life of this person. In the name of Jesus, I just declare that today they are this and they are that. And I try to get a prophetic sense of what God is going to do in their life. And I declare it as though it is present reality. You follow what I'm saying? So that's the 4th key. Key number 5 is stay true to your mission. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing. If things are not going well, sometimes I think we function like this. Guy's driving down the road, and he starts noticing, I don't recognize anything around me. Am I really going the right direction? Well, maybe I just need to go faster. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes things aren't happening, and so, well, maybe we just need to put more energy into it. Maybe we need to rev it up a little more. Maybe we need to raise up more enthusiasm and get more people involved. Well, wait a minute. First of all, are you going the right direction? Are you staying true to your mission? And that's something you've got to revisit again and again and again and again. Because as you're doing ministry, you're going to pick up other things temporarily. Sometimes we have to deal with things that don't have a whole lot to do with our main mission. But deal with that quickly and then get back to it. If you're not careful, you accumulate so many of these side issues that becomes the main focus. And so we've got to stay true to our mission. Do we know why we're doing what we're doing? It's not always easy to pull that together, what your personal mission and vision is, but here's the thing. We are all part of His mission that is clearly defined for us. And I just find this within the realms of the Great Commandment and the Great Commission. You've probably studied those. The Great Commandment is this. We found it in Matthew 22, verse 37 and following. Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment." That's that vertical aspect of what we're all about. It's love for God. We give attention to that love relationship. And we need to ask ourselves the question, what we're doing, does it have anything to do with this love relationship with God? It's right at the center of what Jesus said, this is the most important thing in life. Basically is what He's saying. We're asking the question, what matters most? If this is the first and greatest commandment, He's saying this is what matters most. But that's just one half of it. The other part of it is this, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. That's the horizontal part. So our question is, what matters most? Jesus answers it for us. Love for God, love for people. And then that kind of breaks down into subcategories after that. But then there's the Great Commission. Really, the Great Commission rises out of our love for God and love for people. It's a result of the Great Commandment. The Great Commission is. Matthew 28, verse 18 says, "Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to do everything I've commanded you. Surely I'm with you to the very end of the age.'" Now, every one of us do have our own personal calling, personal mission, but it's always going to connect with the Great Commandment and the Great Commission in one way or another. If it doesn't, then you need to reassess what it is you feel like you're really called to. And it's going to look like different things to different people. Well, how do you really determine what your personal mission is, though? I mean, your unique place within all of that. I encourage people to look at the reoccurring patterns in their life of the things that they are consistently passionate about, the things that they keep getting drawn to. Just the very practical practice of journaling helps a lot with this. What are the reoccurring themes in your life where it just seems like God just keeps meeting you? Every time that you engage this kind of an activity, it's like it's blessed. There's favor on it. That may be an indication of what your unique calling is. Now, some people have been blessed with actually having received a revelation, maybe a word of, maybe a vision or a dream, or I have friends that have actually heard the audible voice of God. I've never heard His audible voice. I've had Him speak to me in other ways. But God speaks to us in various ways. But there are ways for us to discern what that mission is uniquely. I am in a phase of my life now where people refer to this phase in different terms. I call it the third act. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, okay? I'm still active, I've asked for supernatural longevity. Not because I'm afraid of dying, but because I really just want to, like Paul said, it's better for you that I remain, For me to live as Christ, but to die as gain. I just want to stay here as long as I can to advance the kingdom. I said, Lord, as long as I'm an asset, keep me here. The moment I become a liability, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go now if He wants to take me. But I'm in this third act of life. The first act of my life, I was the receiving one. I was just receiving a lot of formation and discipling in Act 1 and early experiences in ministry. Then Act 2 came and I'm just doing of the ministry, pastoring churches and all of this active, hands-on engagement. I'm in the third act now. I'm still doing some of the Act 2 kinds of stuff, but my main mission is empowering others to do what I had been doing more actively previously. And this is the way I put it into words. And I would encourage you, if you ever come to the point where you feel like you can define what your mission is, write it down. I see my mission as this. My mission is to empower the rising generation for cultural transformation and spiritual awakening in our nation. I feel uniquely, specifically called to the United States of America. I have been over all kinds of places in the world. I've been in Asia, I've been in South America, in Africa, various places in ministry I could name and keep you here all day telling stories about it. But when it comes right down to it, I feel that God has ordained there to be a spiritual awakening in this nation. I talked with you previously about this presidential campaign I was involved in. I became so disillusioned that I gave up on America. I really did. Privately, I think my attitude was this, was Jesus, just come, get us out of here. Go ahead, bring your judgment. Antichrist, it's your turn, step in. I mean, it's like, that whole mentality of just get us out, escapism, it's hopeless. America's just going to go down the tubes. And I was at a conference in San Antonio, Texas, and I was up in the balcony, and somebody was singing a song on the platform. Nobody was really saying anything, but the Lord started speaking to me. The Spirit of God came on me. I dropped to my knees right there in the balcony. And He said, talking to me, said, you have turned this nation over to the devil. But I am not finished with America yet. From that day to this, I've had great hope for our nation. Really? Haven't you seen the news lately? Well, it doesn't matter what the news says. I see Jesus right in front of me. When I think about the nation, I see Jesus standing right in the midst of it. Wherever I can envision Jesus, and know that He has a purpose, a redemptive purpose, then I have hope. And whether everything gets fulfilled in a way that's redemptive or not, I don't know, but I must conduct myself that way. So my sense of personal mission is to empower the rising generation for cultural transformation and spiritual awakening. Your role as a leader, and we are all leaders here, we're all influencers. It's not just for you to do a good job within your realm of responsibility. You're to influence people in such a way that someone that you're leading and working with right now can one day be empowered to do the same thing you're doing and to even exceed you in it. And when the day they start doing it better than you, you're there applauding. You ever watch the relay races like in the Olympics and the running, the hand off the baton and to the runners, or the baton, or Europeans like to call it the baton. What is it? Baton? Baton? I don't know. Baton. Let's say baton. We're Americans.
Well, here in Summer, it's a baton.
Baton! I kind of envision what we're doing here as being like that in our mission, that we're as leaders, we're running this race, but we're not going to win this thing just by ourselves. This is a relay race. There's a day that I'm going to pass off the scene, but hopefully I've got somebody else I'm handing off to. Now, I don't know. I've done some study of how they actually do the handoff. It's a little more complicated than what I'm describing it. Okay, but there was a split second where two hands are on that baton at the same time. It's not for long, but there's a moment when both hands are there. And that represents to me that there's, as a leader that wants to empower others, I'm with you, whoever it is I'm mentoring. And you're not going to be alone in this, but I am going to release this to you. And when you cross that finish line, I'm cheering for you. And we all win. And that's the way I feel about my ministry in Maine. I felt like my wife and I contributed to that, but God has released me from being up in the New England States. I believe when ultimately revival breaks out up there and all of that, we're just thank God you allowed us to be a part of that. Key number 6, and I'm not going to do it this long, but define your target, or define what success is to you and aim for it. Don't be like the guy that went out to his barn with his gun and There's this big side of his barn, and raised his gun, just shot at the side of the barn. Shot a little hole there. Then he went and got some paint, and he painted a bullseye around the hole. And boasting to his neighbors, and look what I did. You define your target. Define what success is for you. I mean, don't we sometimes just get so busy with busy stuff? Okay, what are we really trying to accomplish here? What is success in this? When you achieve it, celebrate it. You have to pause to celebrate and to assess. You know, what did we do right here that we should be celebrating? And what didn't go so good that we need to learn from? Okay? Well, let's make some adjustments there. So next time around, we do better. I want to talk a little bit about focus. This is key number 7, focus. Focus. Your focus will determine your direction. You know, what you focus on, you're going to move in that direction. Okay? That's where things are going to go. Focus determines your direction. It also will determine your outcome. And focus will cause whatever you're focused on to increase. You know, when I was a teenager, I wanted to make sure that what I gave focus to, not just in ministry, but in my life, that I was really focusing on what matters. I prayed this prayer, Lord, I only want to devote my life to matters of eternal significance. I do not want to devote my life to pursuits that terminate in this life. I want to give myself to eternal things. And that became a true focus of mine. I had to walk past all kinds of things that looked promising because my focus was eternal things. Amen. Okay? A good way to assess whether or not you're giving yourself to eternal matters is to ask this question. What difference, now this is an important question. What difference will this task or this project or this assignment or whatever we're talking about, what difference will this make 10,000 years from now? Now, I would say what difference will it make in eternity, but we can't grasp the concept of eternity. Okay? It's too vast. We can't comprehend eternity. And to think of it another way, you could ask, what impact will this action or this pursuit have on the lives of others in the generations that follow me? Because 10,000 years from now, I'm dead by then. You know, that's the generations that follow me. What impact will this have on the generations that follow me? And how will they be affected by my obedience? Those are the things that matter most. The things that have eternal impact. There are things that you may think are just routine, everyday decisions that have eternal significance. The things that come out of you spontaneously impact people for eternity. A simple word or a simple outreach or a certain deed of kindness can actually totally change the trajectory of a life that has eternal consequences. Now, that's a heavy responsibility, but it's also a great blessing to know that we've been entrusted with that. So what matters most? You know, we want to focus on what matters. Not everything is equally worthy of my time and my attention and my resources. There's some things that we get, now this is important, there's some things that others can address, and you don't have to address it. Now, we have to be careful with this. We have to be careful not to use it as an excuse for just being lazy and for neglecting things. But we need to be discerning. This situation I'm faced with, is it for me to address or is it for someone else? Maybe the better thing for this person is for me to get them the help they need so somebody else can deal with that. Because if I could try to help them, but I won't be able to do as good as this other person. And I can stay focused on what I'm good at and what I know I'm called to. Do you know what I'm saying? Now, I know there's crisis situations where every one of us has got to jump in and just do everything we can. Doesn't matter if you're gifted in this or not. It's got to be done. Do it. You know. You know, we hit those times, but I'm talking about the primary mode in which we operate. You don't have to do everything. Others can address some things. But now there's some things that only I can address. For instance, only I can be a husband to my wife. You know, only I can be a husband to my wife. Only I can be a father to my children. Only I can be a grandfather to my grandchildren. That's where I'm at in life. And only I can live my life of devotion to God. Nobody else can do that for me. Other people can do a lot of the other things. Zoom in on your own responsibilities in ministry, work, and leadership, and ask yourself that same question. What matters most, right, in your company, or if you're working in a job, and you can apply this in the secular realm too, or in the church, or it applies in different areas. Stay focused on what matters. And focus on one thing. Do you know if you're focused on multiple things, you're not really focusing? This concept of multitasking has been overrated. Overrated. Now, I've been in situations where you had to multitask, but it kind of reminds me of walking into the electronics section of Walmart or Target, going back to that back wall, all those TV screens, all those screens. Imagine. They're all back there. They're all turned to different channels, and they're all going at one time. Sometimes it feels like that in my head. You know, focus is important. We got to get some of this shut out, some of the noise in our life. Staying focused on our mission is really what we're talking about here. May every day we be thinking, what one thing can I do today to advance my mission? Well, let's bring it down to this. What one thing can we do in the next 10 minutes to advance what we feel like our personal mission is? Or how about in a conversation? Lord, what is the one thing I can do in the conversation I'm in right now that really advances your kingdom purposes in this conversation? I even bring it down to walking into a room. What one thing can I do in this room right now to improve the quality of things and to advance kingdom purposes? It's a mindset that you train yourself in. It's all part of staying focused on your mission. You're bringing the kingdom of heaven wherever you go. Key number 8, discern between urgent and important. You know, there's some things that are urgent, there's some things not urgent. There's some things that are important, there's some things that are not so important. The things that are both urgent and important, well, you probably need to do those things right away. All right? But there's other things that are not so urgent, yet they are important. Well, you have time there to make decisions about that. And you can schedule a time to do those things. It doesn't have to be immediate. But then there are things that they're urgent, but they're not important. Well, not important to you necessarily. Well, you can delegate those things. You know, who can do these things for you? And there's other things that are not urgent and not important at all. You need to try to eliminate those things. I'm just talking about ways of deciding how to deal with things and making decisions. If you're a person that feels like, man, I just seem like I get to the end of a week and nothing that I felt like I needed to do got done, well, maybe you need to do an assessment. All of us go through that from time to time. But I'm talking about if that seems to be a pattern in your life, take it through this little diagnostic. You might discover that there's a lot of stuff you're giving attention to that's not urgent, not important, but it's just occupying your time. But on the other hand, if you are under the authority of a supervisor and something doesn't seem important to you, but it's obviously important to the supervisor, guess what? You take the servant heart there, and you, even though it's not personally valuable to you, you honor what somebody else sees as important, and you're their employee. You know what I'm saying? You're serving their vision. Listen, you might be a leader, and you might even be a senior leader in the making. But if you're not the senior leader, a major part of your mission is to help make your leader successful. You are serving their vision. The tyranny of the urgent, you ever hear that expression? That's where your whole life consists of just moving from crisis to crisis to crisis to crisis. And I was serving in one ministry, and the senior leader said to me, have you noticed it seems like all we ever do is deal with crisis, that we can never get to the real stuff that we really want to do here? Well, something's wrong with that picture, because you're letting crisis set the agenda. And I don't know, there's not always an easy solution to that, but it's something that's got to be prayed into, and it's got to somehow be corrected. Not to the avoidance of crisis situations, but finding a way to still to stay on task with what you're really there to accomplish without allowing crises to change the whole direction of the ministry. Key number 9, it might not look like it's important, but it is elevate people over paper. What is that? Paper represents projects. It represents all the things I've got going, all the administrative detail. And sometimes it feels like I'm so covered up with work, I don't have time for you right now. Something's wrong with that picture. Especially those of us who are in ministry. It's all about the people. Very little about the paper. Now, some of that paper's got to be dealt with. You've got to keep records. You've got to prepare things. You've got projects you've got to do. There's logistic things that are task-oriented that have to be done. But whether you're a task-oriented person, see, some people are not good people. You know what I mean? I mean, thank God for those people that are not people, because they can be task-oriented people to do a lot of the tasks that need to be done. But even a person that's not a people person, this is almost a tongue twister. Even those people that are not people. Try saying that 12 times real fast. Let's see what happens. That's something that can be developed. You don't have to be a total extrovert, and you don't have to become somebody you're not. But we can train ourselves to be more aware of the people around us. You ever been in a ministry project, you feel like you're just being a slave? Or if you're on the supervising end, you feel like you're a slave driver. We just got to get this done. And I understand there's times you've got to just do those kind of things, but it should not be our main mode of operating. If we will make people the priority, here's what it looks like. That means I'm going to take time to listen to you when you need to talk. I might have to say, listen, I want to hear what you just have to say. I've got about a minute here. What's on your heart? If I would take time for people over paper, I will empower that person to become powerful in what they do. If they feel like they're not cared for, if they feel like their priorities are not important to me, they're going to get discouraged. Morale is going to fall. We'll lose momentum. Okay? Momentum is a hard thing to get back. When you catch it, thank God, God does help us get momentum back from time to time. When you get it, you ride that momentum. But I guarantee you, when you've got momentum, part of it is because people are feeling important. They're feeling valued. And in the end result, you will get more work done. You will accomplish more. If you'll take time to empower people. Why is that? It's because no longer is it you that's feeling encouraged and it's doing stuff, but they're empowered to do what God's given them to do, and you're going to see a lot more accomplished. There's times when I was college president, I would just get up from my desk, try to do this on a weekly basis, and I would just simply walk through every corridor, into every office, and follow the leading of the Spirit. Hey, let's just have prayer together. Sometimes prayer goes into prophecy. Encouraging. Walking through the recruiting area and have all these phone banks there with all these students making phone calls. Dr. Turpin's in the room, and just say, hey, how's everyone doing? Thank you for what you're doing. You're thanking people. You're affirming people. You're building people up. Be the best encourager that God ever invented. Through people connections, we're equipping people, empowering them. This is not just about delegation. You're truly valuing that person. You're honoring their worth. Well, we've got to stop right there. We're about midway in a point, actually, in one of the keys. But we'll pick it up again next week in part 4, and we should be wrapping it up with our part 4 episode next week. But why not take some of the insights you've gained from this episode this week and take it to the Lord in prayer and ask, Father, is there something here that I have heard that I should be applying in my own life, in my own leadership development? And the whole thing here is about us being productive
in matters pertaining to the kingdom of God, and we all want to excel in that, don't we? Well, thank you once again for joining me here at Kingdom Conversations. Why not direct your friends to join us next week at podcast.randyturpin.net. And may the rest of this week be filled with many encounters with God's goodness. God bless you.